Okay, let's jump right in. Whenever we talk about the single parenting load, it's so easy to just look at the surface, right? We see the cooking, the cleaning, the endless scheduling, just the sheer hustle of getting from morning to night. But in this explainer, we're going to take about 7 minutes to build a really wholesome, structural understanding of why this load is so incredibly heavy. We're going to look past all that obvious stuff and uncover the hidden machinery that makes this role so uniquely demanded.
So, we've all heard this comic comparison, haven't we? Single parenting is like doing 2 jobs. And, I mean, sure, it sounds true. It definitely feels true when you're talking about pure effort and exhaustion. But we need to start by looking at why this idea is actually, well, kind of an incomplete picture. Because it reduces this highly complex living system down to a super simple math problem, like just adding up hours and chores.
But here's the real question we need to ask ourselves. What if that 2 jobs math completely misses the heaviest part of the whole burden? Because the true weight of single parenting isn't just the sheer number of extra tasks. It's the stark, unrelenting reality that absolutely all the consequences, all the decisions, and all the emotional regulation, they land entirely on one person.
Think of it like a single breaker box in an apartment building. Okay, so if one circuit runs the lights, another runs the fans, and another runs the kitchen, and then you plug in literally just one more appliance, the entire system strains or it trips. And it's not because that one new toaster is impossible to run. It's because every single circuit is drawing from that exact same power source. There's absolutely no backup system when one part fails.
So that brings us to our first main section, the hidden machinery, looking at visible tasks versus invisible work.
Now, the divide here is pretty stark. The visible tasks are easy for anybody to see, right? School pickup, cooking dinner, doing laundry. But a simple everyday task like cooking dinner, it actually requires a massive, quiet layer of unseen preparation. This invisible work means noticing food is running low, figuring out what is actually affordable, planning around completely exhausted energy levels, and, let's be real, remembering what your kid will even tolerate eating that day. Researchers actually estimate that parents make hundreds of these micro-decisions every single day. Literally every visible task rests on this heavy, continuous chain of invisible prep.
And this invisible machinery essentially breaks down into 3 interconnected pillars that keep daily family life moving: mental tracking, emotional containment, and structural responsibility. And in a single-parent home, all 3 of these massive pillars are held up by just one set of shoulders.
Let's look at that first pillar, the mental storage room. Now, in a shared household, memory is spread out between people. But for a single parent, that entire storage facility sits in one mind. It's exactly like a smartphone with way too many apps open in the background. The parent's mind slows down, and not because any single app is broken, but because the sheer processing power of keeping them all active at once is just mechanically exhausting. You're holding unfinished thoughts, you're anticipating the next need, and you're rapidly switching between, say, a work crisis and a childcare concern.
Then we have the second pillar, which is emotional labor. Think of a bridge. People easily notice the cars driving along the top of it. But the real job, that's being done by the hidden structural supports underneath. Well, the parent acts as that unseen support. They are constantly absorbing a child's anxiety, disappointment, or anger and holding it steady to keep the daily routine stable. They aren't just managing feelings, they are literally carrying the infrastructure of the family.
And the third pillar is this lack of a structural handoff. Because there are no easy chances to just tap out and reset. The parent is constantly balancing short-term survival with long-term stability. It is exactly like trying to drive while reading the traffic ahead and obsessively watching the fuel gauge at the exact same time. You can't just focus on the road. You have to constantly ask yourself, okay, if I use my energy on this right now, what's going to be left in the tank for tomorrow?
Moving on to section 2, the domino effect. This is what happens when systems collide. Looking at real-life data from our source material, we see the story of a Pakistani mother that perfectly illustrates how thinly supported systems don't experience problems one at a time. No, they fall like linked dominoes. A child gets a fever, which means missed work. Missed work instantly means less income. That financial hit creates deep, distracting worry, which naturally leads to less patience at home. Then, the child feels that tense energy and acts out, creating a brand new emotional task to manage. The logistical strain bleeds directly into emotional strain.
In this looping domino effect, the parent is forced into a dual role. They have to be both the receiver of the stress and the regulator of the stress.
They are acting impossibly as both the thermostat and the heater at exactly the same time. Think about that. They have to sense that the family temperature is running too hot, so measuring the problem, while simultaneously generating the internal energy required to cool the whole house down. When a human system runs like this, without enough slack for recovery, it inevitably enters survival mode. And it is incredibly important to point out here, this is not a character flaw. Actually, it's not a failure of willpower at all. It is a mechanical reality of load concentration. Patients get shorter, small problems feel massive, and the nervous system literally stays on high alert, even when the house is finally quiet.
This creates a continuous, honestly grief-filled reality of impossible trade-offs. You see, single parents aren't usually choosing between a good option and a bad option. They're being forced to choose between two absolutely necessary things. Like, do I work extra to earn needed money, or am I present for my struggling child? Do I rest, or do I fulfill my immediate responsibilities? These constant, impossible trade-offs create a really heavy, invisible grief.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 3, the true power of support and stabilizing the system. Knowing all of this, we have to completely reframe how we view support. It's not just about helping out. As we can see here, support has a massive multiplying effect. Picking up a child from school isn't just checking off a chore for the parent, it's a systemic intervention. It breaks the stress chain, it removes a rushed transition, lowers the emotional pressure, and gives that parent's breaker box a crucial moment to cool down. True support isn't just assistance, it is absolute structural stability.
Relief cannot come from willpower, better organization, or just, trying harder. The load is fundamentally concentrated on one single point. So the ultimate question I want you to walk away with is this. Now that you understand this living system is under intense, concentrated pressure, how will you help distribute the load? How will you be the backup system?